Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Dolores Tarver. I'm a licensed psychologist here in Georgia, and it is time for the TT Time with Dr. Tarver. It's a wellness-based podcast. It is not intended to be a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health provider. Here we are in this third week of November. The series for the next couple of months is going to be addressing a lot of different things: holiday planning, grieving, trying to maintain a sense of balance. Just wanted to make sure that we're looking at taking care of ourselves during the next upcoming months. Week 1, we discussed boundary setting. Week 2, we discussed our veterans and the holidays. And today, we are going to be discussing supporting our trans and non-binary family and friends during the holidays. Trans Appreciation Week was November 13th through 19th, and November 20th is a day of annual observance and remembrance of transgender people who lost their lives due to acts of anti-transgender violence. So I really want to talk today about how to support and support our loved ones, and also navigate through this holiday season for individuals who identify as transgender and non-binary. I talk to you all frequently about the holidays isn't necessarily a happy time for everyone. For some people, it can be filled with anxiety, and that is because we're thinking about with whom we're going to spend our holidays. So I like to organize families into 4 categories as we're talking about thinking of these holiday spaces. This isn't an exhaustive list. It is just a way to, as I'm talking to people about trying to figure out what's best for them, to give you some sense of an anchor to understand what may be important to think about as you're trying to make an informed decision. So we all want the largely supportive families who are willing to learn and evolve, be kind, people who are going to be loving and nurturing to us. That is our greatest gift, if we can have that, to be able to be in that experience. But we know that that's not the case for a lot of people. Sometimes we're in families where they may be, I think, initially shocked or uncomfortable as we come out to them, as we talk about changes that we're experiencing, going in different directions, maybe from the expectations they had for us. But they're trying, right? They're trying to understand, and their focus is still on having a relationship. And so they're just trying to navigate what that might look like. Then we have people who I would refer to as selectively supportive. So I don't care what you do in your own private life. I don't want that at my house. I don't want that around other members of the family. When you're over here, you need to look like this. You need to speak like this, right? Those are my selectively supportive people who is like, I'll support you up to a certain point. But do know that I'm definitely going to be talking to you about making changes that I think would be better for you, to make it easier on everybody else and hopefully talk some sense into you. Then we have who I feel like are probably best described as the family that feels as if they're being very rejecting, because they're absolutely mocking and belittling and bullying and antagonizing people based on their gender identity and expression, or their again, sometimes people feel like you're kind of deviating from, you're challenging, you're bucking the system, the norms, right? So the way that it is interpreted, I think often these families, is it's a personal attack on our family values, right? And so those are important as we begin to talk about how to be supportive of our loved ones who identify as trans or gender non-conforming, non-binary, and also as we're creating safer spaces for people to be in our homes. So why is this important, Tarver? In general, I do believe that most of us are conditioned to put people in nice, neat categories, right? I just did that. I categorized families into these 4 areas that I just described. And when we think about things that don't fit nice and neat into categories. Gender nonconforming, a gender identity that doesn't match the gender I was assigned at birth. It can make people very uncomfortable because it challenges what we've been taught, what we were taught specifically that is normal. And because of that, now we're beginning to question our own reality, our own identities, and what we perceive as security. Because one of the things that we feel like we can count on is that, okay, gender identity is stable, it doesn't change over time. However, people are born, that's who they are. And so when we start talking about that, okay, you don't necessarily identify in that way, like it is confusing to us. Sometimes we can't relate, we don't understand. People really struggle. This is some of the most common things I hear in therapy is people will ask me why. Like that doesn't make sense to them. But I think underneath that is also this feeling of as if someone they love is rejecting something that maybe they hold as primary to them, as a core to them. And so it feels like that you're rejecting them as well. It may be that they feel like they're being insulted. They may be embarrassed or feel like they have failed. And this is often coming from family who is in a parental or guardian role. Like, you don't want to keep my name. The name that I gave you, you were named after Auntie Betty. And that is mocking of our family legacy for you to change that name. How dare you? This has been a tradition in our family for you to have this name or these middle names or this hyphenated part of your name. And I think sometimes parents and guardians, loved ones feel like they have failed, that people are going to be looking at them and saying, like, what did you do? What did you allow? What did you cultivate? What did you create? And because for us, we tend to internalize, then we're thinking, okay, this is going to be a reflection on me. And then there is this issue of religion, because some of us have been taught that this notion of gender identity, that a person can identify as trans or non-binary, to them is an abomination. It is you going against the word of God. And I tell you all frequently, I'm not going to debate with people about their values and their beliefs, but I will absolutely stand firm in that God is a loving God. And I do not believe that God created any of us to be mistreated. So I will say that because we are struggling with a variety of different things, then sometimes what will happen is people will just outright refuse to honor name changes, to honor gender identity or expression, whether that's in clothing or in makeup or hormonal procedures. Like, people will absolutely ostracize family and friends, disown them even. We've definitely seen in my field people who are cut off completely from their families because their families draw a very firm line in the sand. Either you're going to be who we've known you to be, and who we are comfortable with you being, or you're dead to us. They can maybe keep you in the family, but they're going to belittle you and put you down. Or they're going to drill you with all these questions. Sometimes people have gone as far as staging an intervention. Here is an unknowing family member walking into a situation where somebody is talking about rebuking demons from them or conversion therapy. And these things can be definitely incredibly hurtful to our gender non-confirming and transgender loved ones. During this holiday season, we all want to have loving, safe spaces. We want to feel accepted. We want to be able to be whole and express who we are and not hide. But when that doesn't happen, we can feel abandoned and unloved and unworthy. Who likes to be questioned in ways that feel very intrusive, uh, very challenging, as if You've been influenced by the environment. You can't make your own decisions for yourself. You don't have the power of discernment or judgment, that you haven't fully researched and don't understand a medical procedure, that you'll grow out of something, that you're not a real something, that you haven't earned something, that you're not loved and accepted as a child of God. You need to go read the Bible and pray, go to church, right? Like, who wants to be in experiences where they're being made to feel as if they're a mistake? People struggle every day with self-love, every day. But in particular, we see high rates of suicide amongst our transgender youth specifically, because the foundation by which we all need as young people is one that's secure, one that's loving, one that's accepting and understanding, right? At least one tries, even if they don't fully understand. No one likes to be the butt of a joke that feels like it's attacking their sense of self or getting at a wound that's there about their value. We don't like our boundaries being challenged. Well, people will do things to us that we've explicitly stated don't feel comfortable to us, that you intentionally antagonize me, you poke at me, you get other people to do so, that we feel like I'm in this space, but I can only be in this space if I hide a part of who I am, if I don't rock the boat, if I don't cause problems. You don't need to do that around your grandparents. If you love your grandparents, you'll come as we know you to be. You'll utilize the name that was given to you. Do you want to crush them? They're aging. Do you want to be responsible for killing them? This would kill them, right? And so then there's this guilt. So, okay, I love you all and I want to be around you. And so I'm willing to be around you at whatever it costs to me. But again, what does that do to me? What does that do to any of us when we feel like we have to hide? When we feel like we have to be repressed? When we cannot walk by a mirror and feel an integrated sense of self? When we don't feel like we're enough for you to love us unconditionally? It doesn't feel good to be nitpicked about your body, your attire, your accessories, your hair, your makeup. It doesn't feel good to be ostracized. It doesn't feel good to feel as if you're an embarrassment and people are ashamed of you. And it definitely doesn't feel good to not have places where you feel safe with the people that you love, right? So what's important here? What do I want to let you know? A few things. So one, if you are a person who identifies as transgender or non-binary, and you are making decisions about where you want to spend your holidays, let me leave you with this. Self-care is your priority. So you think about what you need. For some of that is journaling, because we've got to wrestle with a lot of different things as we're preparing to go in environments with people or thinking about going into environments with people. It can be very helpful to get those thoughts on paper. Make your pros and cons. Talk about what might happen that might be uncomfortable, what kind of boundaries you may need to set, how you're going to address it. You may want to be talking with your therapist about preparation, particularly if this is going to be your first holiday as your integrated self. You may need to do some mindfulness and meditation before you go. Have your favorite playlist queued up. I definitely recommend that anyone that is taking prescribed medications, that you make sure you do that prior to going into these environments. You may be having anxiety, you may be dealing with depression. So we want to make sure that you are absolutely having everything that you need to help you through this situation. You might want to go for a nice walk, be in nature, get some kind of physical activity, some dancing in there. You might want to do some grounding before you go, but also have some grounding techniques you're going to utilize when you're in the space. You want to affirm yourself and be loving to yourself prior to going into any spaces. And you want to identify who your support is going to be, right? So Trevor Project has some really good recommendations on there and some good resources, but also identify who in your support system can be affirming for you and possibly maybe even go with you or advocate for you while you're there. You may have a family member that is going to advocate for you. You may have a friend that's willing to go with you to be able to be that support, right? So these are important things to do in preparation for going into any spaces. I would also like to say, if your family is a family that is rejecting and negative and critical and belittling and demeaning, you may want to absolutely first think about your safety. Unfortunately, because of the violence toward, in particular, the trans community, I would not ever advise anyone to go into a space where someone may become aggressive towards you, where people are going to be standing outside when they see you pull up, blocking you from entering, and in a position to physically assault you. I don't ever want you to go into a place where people are going to humiliate you, where they may disrobe you, where they may um, tug and pull at your hair, where they may spit at you, where they may hurl insults towards you. That's not a safe space for you. And I want you to take an honest assessment of how your family typically engages, the things that they've done in the past, so that you can make an informed decision about if being with them is the healthiest for you. And I know we struggle so much with wanting that acceptance and that love and to be a part of those environments. I will say not at the cost of your well being. So that may be when you need to really think about an exit strategy. If particularly you are, and this may be just families that are uncomfortable, but maybe not families that might be violent, but who may be wanting you to not use your name that you've identified as your name that you want to be called, who may not acknowledge your gender pronouns, right? So you want to be able to be in spaces where you're able to navigate that. And so if you need to leave, that you're able to leave, whether that's I need to go to a room here and just take a minute when the conversation goes to a place that's uncomfortable. I've corrected these people for the 15th time. So being able to do that, but also knowing when to leave. So, maybe I'm going to do a drop in. Hey, wanted to see you all and spend some time with you, but I also have some other plans to go be in spaces with other people, right? And so that you're able, particularly if you find that you cannot be fully who you are in a space and you're making that sacrifice to be with your family, you need to make sure that you're able to leave that space and go be somewhere where you can be who you are, right? That could be a Friendsgiving, that could be with chosen family, that could be with coworkers, other people who you're in community organizations with. Sometimes we'll go and volunteer on Thanksgiving to be around other caring, nurturing people. So think about that as you're looking at your potential options for the holidays. What's going to be the best fit for you? And sometimes it's important for us to have multiple plans because you just don't know, right? So this may be your first holiday and you don't know what the reactions may be. You don't know what the environment may look like. So you want to have multiple things that are set up. For those of us who want to be allies, for those of us who want to create safe spaces for our friends and family members, these are some things that I think are very helpful. One, use a person's preferred pronouns. You don't have to understand them, but you do need to abide by them, which means you need to practice them. So what we're not going to do is he, she. We are not going to. I'm sorry. That you're just gonna have to forgive me. Like I'm just not gonna remember. We're not going to do that. We're going to prepare and we're going to practice because we love and respect and are going to honor this person in the same way that we want to be honored. Many of us that refuse to use other people's preferred pronouns and names would not allow the same treatment of us. If somebody continuously would not call you by your name, are you going to allow them to do that? No. There's going to be some consequences for that, right? That feels very disrespectful. So we're going to honor people. And you're going to educate yourself. You don't want to wear people out asking them questions that you can find yourself. There's a variety of resources out there. GLAAD, the National Center for Trans Equality, Trans Lifeline. Take some time, rent some videos, pull up some videos online, get some resources so you can be informed and not asking people intrusive questions or making assumptions about them. And also, so you can be prepared, ask them about their preferences, right? And this doesn't mean all the 5,000 members of the family need to ask them. There could be one person who may be the person who's hosting the event that reaches out and asks about preferred name, preferred pronouns, right? So that we'll know to be able to create a safe space for people. We also want to make sure that we extend invitations for people sometimes to bring friends and partners. And I know that for some families, it's like, you can't come over here with that person, right? And so this is why it is very essential that we are working toward being able to create safe spaces. Because if you're in a space where you can't bring your partner, that's not a safe space, right? And so you may be a house that someone is coming to because they aren't able to go somewhere else. So you want to make sure that they're able to be with who they see as loving and supportive people in their lives, right? Sometimes we also need to challenge some of the traditions that we have because they're very gender specific. Men wear white shirts, women wear red shirts. How about instead the holiday colors are red and white in whatever combination that you choose? That way people can feel free to express themselves in whatever works for them. And check in with people. A lot of times we love to bring out those family photos and relive these memories, but how does this person feel about those memories? Those may not have been experienced in the same way by them, particularly if it was during a time when they were really struggling because they didn't feel comfortable being who they were. And so you want to address this person first, but you also want to make sure that you are addressing them in who they are today, right? So we're not going to say when you were a boy, when you were a girl. We're going to, oh my goodness, this was such a great memory with you. We had this ice cream. Do you still like pecan ice cream, right? So, but also checking in with them about memories and how they feel about things prior to. We want to respect people's privacy and we want them to be the narrators of their own stories. Just because someone has come out to you doesn't mean they've come out to everyone in the family or all of their friends. So don't make assumptions based on how a person presents. You allow them to be able to have whatever their process is. Everybody's process is different. We're not going to judge. We're not going to compare. We definitely are not going to ask them if they know all the other people who identify as trans or binary or non-binary. We're not going to give them helpful dating tips, and we're definitely not going to make backhanded compliments about, wow, you really look like you could be a woman, right? So these are things we're not going to do. But what we are going to do is love on them. And if you like their outfit, say you like their outfit. If you like their hair, say you like their hair. If you like their makeup, say you like their makeup. Like whatever this may be. Like, oh my goodness, like look at your beard coming in. Looks good on you, right? Like it's just a compliment. It's not a backhanded compliment. It is a conversation. It is not a conversation where I'm probing and I'm prying. And I'm definitely not going to be asking you about your sex life or your genitals or surgery. And we're not going to be talking about religious or political views and have you to be an expert in the area and an advocate for everyone, right? So we're just going to go ahead and make our nice list of guidelines and our rules that will be governing our guest behavior. You do it all the time. For those of you that don't allow people to wear shoes in your house, they already understand that. They know to have their shoes put at the door and get their little fuzzy socks or their shoe covers or whatever you have available for them. This is true as well. Certain things are going to be off the table. We're not going to be making jokes about people. We're going to use their preferred names and pronouns, and we're going to be respectful in this space. If we know Uncle Johnny, when he gets a little of that liquor in him, tends to be inappropriate, we're going to address Uncle Johnny before he gets there so he can make a decision about whether or not this is going to be an appropriate venue for him. Because we will be giving him a nice Uber ride home if he's unable to make sure that he's respectful to all guests, right? So we're going to lead with love, right? When you lead with love, that makes all the gatherings wonderful gatherings because we're here supporting, encouraging, nurturing each other, and being in this safe space. All right. Here is the final thing that I will say because I want to honor that you as a parent, you as an aunt, a grandparent, an uncle, a sibling, a cousin, a former partner, a partner, may be dealing with a lot of different things. One might be grief because you're grieving the loss of who this person was to you. You may have concerns about their safety. You may have concerns about their hormone treatment. You may be confused. It may affect how you are attracted to this person. If you're in a relationship with them, you may be confused if you're a person who hasn't heard this terminology before. What does that even mean? And I'm not sure what to do with that. How did you get this way? What is this about, right? All of this stuff that you're struggling with, you do not need to be addressing that with this person during the holidays. I need for you to go to therapy. And I need you to talk through and work out and understand and reconcile all of the things you need to do about your religion, about that this was your only child, that this is your the legacy you thought that you would have for this person, whatever it may be. I need for you to work through that in your own therapy and not give that to this person who is in the process of being who it is that they were meant to be, right? So when you take care of those things, you won't be bleeding all over them at the dinner table. And you'll be able to be in relationship and love truthfully and honestly with them as you're learning and growing and recognizing your own grace, right? So I say that all to say we all deserve, all of us, to have safe and loving spaces during the holiday season. Have a very loving Thanksgiving. Be well.